Welcome back, everyone. Um, uh, in case you didn't notice, this is the second time I'm doing this tonight. And that was because there's some annoying setting on StreamYard where every time I play one of those videos, it just decides to mute me. And unless you're closely paying attention to that box to make sure that you're not muted, it will mute you. So, regardless, I just want to start off with happy holidays. I hope you're having a great evening and are spending time with your family. And welcome back. Now, if you watched the last video, which I subsequently deleted, you might have been able to read my lips and some of the stuff that I posted below. But in case you are not a lip reader, I'm just going to redo this thing. So there's three things I'm going to cover today. The first, I'm going to go through systematically most of the upcoming episodes for the remainder of the year, as well as next year, or January of next year. Then I'm going to talk very quickly about current projects, and then we'll go into straight into questions. So, with that, let's go into upcoming episodes. Okay. All right. So the first bit that I'm going to have is, just bear with me here while I clean this up, is an episode with some perennial, one of your perennial favorites. Oh, I don't, Kev. Sorry, I'm interrupting. Kev. Yeah, Kev. I don't buy that NFT stuff. That's why I didn't get caught up in FTX and all that nonsense. So I am happy that SBF is in prison, or at least is in jail. Although he somehow they found a $250 million house that the parents were able to put up as collateral. But anyway, in terms of upcoming episodes, the first is with Preston Dennett. You'll see this on Monday. It's also with Dali Saffron, who is a noted experiencer, and it's kind of an episode on why disclosure is not coming, and goes into some of the reasons why. So I hope you'll tune in for that. The next episode, in talking to Daz Smith, who's a very talented remote viewer, he noted that not only did the Stargate program do remote viewing, but they also employed channelers. At the very beginning, they were not super happy about it, but as time went on, and channeling also was proven to be successful, or had some intelligence successes, they allowed people like Angela Ford, who initially focused on remote viewing, and then over time also started to bring in channeling and tarot reading. So I interviewed Angela, again, who was a full-fledged member of the Stargate program, and it'll be interesting to see, how that develops. So that should come out Wednesday of next week. Then she's also an experiencer, and there's this famous apartment well, I don't know if it's famous, but there's an apartment in Washington, D.C., which ended up being just randomly a place where experiencers would congregate during the 80s. So, like, Whitley Strieber would randomly show up there. Angela lived there for a little bit. One of the first UFOs caught on film was presented there, or shown or exhibited in that room. So it'll be a episode about the high strangeness there. And then we're also going to talk a little bit more about things and phenomena outside of remote viewing, psychic phenomena, ESP, etc. Again, with Angela Ford. And those two episodes will be sometime in January of next year. Then I also am very pleased to announce that I have an interview with Tim Powers. If you've all seen Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, he's the guy who wrote the book on Stranger Tides. So he was also a close confidant of the late Philip K. Dick, and he provides some background on how Philip K. Dick was not the only author of The Man in the High Castle. Apparently, the I Ching was as well, because Philip K. Dick would consult the I Ching to help resolve plot points. He would also consult it for girlfriend troubles and things like that. And often when he did not get the answer he likes, he would make the I Ching sleep outside. So there's Philip K. Dick is a very strange and interesting character, and we will go into a lot more of that, in the future. So tune in for that episode, which will come in January of next year. I also had a second interview with Tim Powers. Tim Powers likes to write a lot about the paranormal. He won't touch it himself. He's a devout Catholic and is terrified, but he was going to write a book about an exorcism in San Bernardino County. So he got a book that had a transcript of a live exorcism. And as part of that, at the very beginning, it said, after each chapter, make sure you say this prayer. And I thought he was just, nope, putting that away. I don't want demons in my house. So anyway, it's an interesting episode about his focus on the paranormal. And there's also one of the anecdotes related during this episode is apparently they discovered, I don't know what they discovered. There's a news article in the LA Times in 1934 about the lizard mazes underneath Los Angeles that were discovered by a geologist, and how the lizard people used to live under there. So it's very strange, but it is an entertaining and interesting interview. I definitely and highly encourage you to watch it. I've also had the opportunity to talk to Dale Graff, who was the director of the Stargate program. He, first it belonged to the Army, and then from the Army it was transferred to DIA, and then ultimately it was transferred to the CIA. Dale Graff was at the DIA at the time that he was director of Stargate. So there's this enigmatic personality who trained, or at least gave initial training to Daz Smith, named Lee Culver. And anybody who cycled through Project Stargate specifically, Dale knew by name. So he's always somebody that you can, at least that particular project, if there were other classified projects that we don't know about, which there probably were, then there are potentially other remote viewers out there. But I ran Lee Culver's name through him and got an answer. You have to watch the episode to see what's going on with that. Interesting enough, he also worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base before he was involved in the Stargate program at the Foreign Technology Division, which incidentally, there are rumors that that's where the Roswell craft was initially transferred in 1947. And I asked him the question if he had heard any rumors or had seen anything that was interesting. Also, the Project Blue Book office was run right next to his office. But while he was there, he focused on technical intelligence, particularly Soviet technology. And he was a very big STEM guy, science, technology, engineering, like that sort of thing. So he focused on his degrees in physics and aeronautical engineering from Penn State. So I asked a lot of those questions. So it's another fascinating episode that I definitely encourage people to watch. And then we also did an episode on what he did after his retirement. He started focusing on dreaming, lucid dreaming, and also precognitive dreaming. And he would run experiments where he would essentially very similar to remote viewing, except he would ask himself, questions, to kind of predict what was going to happen 7 days into the future. And the way that he would do that is he would pick a very specific panel in a particular newspaper, and 7 days ahead would tell his subconscious before he went to sleep, I'm going to dream about what's going to be in that panel, or what picture is going to appear in that panel 7 days from now. And he got something that was astonishing in terms of the results. So you'll have to see that, but he's done hundreds, if not thousands, of these experiments during the course of his life. So there's definitely something behind this precognitive dreaming that we focus on. And then I finally got him onto the podcast. So Dr. Colm Kelleher from Skinwalkers at the Pentagon fame, he's one of the co-authors there. He was the biochemist who or he's a biochemist by training who worked at NIDS, which is the National Institute of Discovery Science for Robert Bigelow's organization, and then subsequently also worked on OSAP with the Defense Intelligence Agency to try to figure out what the phenomena was at Skinwalker Ranch. And I ask him a ton of questions. We talk about in Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, he models the hitchhiker effect using an epidemiological model where how fast the virus spreads is measured with something called an R naught. So diseases like HIV/AIDS, SARS, both have an R naught of 3, which is a measure of how fast the virus spreads. The hitchhiker effect has the same number. It's around a 3. And, so I ask him questions. There's kind of 3 things that go into that. There's the contact rate, there's the period of infection, and then there's the mode of transmission. So I asked him, how does he think this thing is transmitted? And you'll have to watch the episode to get an answer. I also asked him about some experiments that whether or not they tried looking at infrasound in their examination of the period, and a number of other questions that I've never seen people ask on other episodes. So definitely tune in. I'm going to lead off next year with this episode, so you'll be able to see it on January 2nd. So definitely hunker down, stay tuned, and get ready to watch that. I also have 2 more interviews that I did with a gentleman named Ryan Stacy, who's a private investigator up in Canada. And what he does is he investigates contactee experiences. And 95% of the time he's able to rule them out. But if not, then I think about 5% of the cases have explanations that are not so easily dismissed. So definitely tune into those episodes. They should appear kind of toward the tail end of January. So with that, that's kind of what we should all expect for going into next year. I'm really excited about it. And by the way, thank you for watching the channel and tuning in, because it definitely fuels me and allows me to to do a lot of this stuff. So I really, really appreciate it. All right. So I'm going to go very quickly through current projects. I don't want to spend too much time on it. So I'm still working on Wormwood Down. As soon as I get most of my videos, my backlog of videos kind of polished and published and out onto the uploaded to YouTube, then I'm going to kind of go back into that. In terms of Weird War China, which is the kind of third installment of the Weird World War series. There's Weird World War III, World War IV. You can find them on Amazon, etc. I'm 88% done. I'm waiting for one more story, and then I'm going to probably write a story in it of my own. So I hope to have that finished, at least my story, by the end of this year. And then there's one author that I just have to bother and make sure that they get in. And then obviously working on the podcast. You've seen all the episodes that are coming up. So I think I'm in pretty good shape thus far. Last time I checked, we were at 916 subscribers. So I'm very close to getting 1,000. Again, thank you very much. I really appreciate all the support, and hope you'll continue to support me. And the other ways you can support the channel, I'll just be really quick on this. In late November, I had this book, Hell's Well, which is a novella that came out from eSpec. It's about again, it's just fiction. It's about a cryptid that is in Southern California. And, you can find that anywhere books are sold. And then I have a short story in this Bain anthology called Worlds Long Lost. It's called They Only Dig at Night. So check that out. All right. So I'm not going to spend any more time on that. So let's go into questions at this at this point. So let's see. All right. So has anybody looked into the? So this is from Linda de Gonzalez. Has anyone looked into the origins of the concept of original sin? I personally think it's the single most destructive concept towards humanity and towards women in particular. And then I don't know if it. Let's just pull this up. Oh, did it originate on Earth? Great question. I haven't focused too much on it, but the more research I do on the phenomena and things like that, it feels to me that we're not necessarily the ones that I think religion is something that may or may not be, created by, I think it's a way of interpreting other kind of things that are non-supernatural, maybe, interdimensional, or maybe supernatural is interdimensional, but maybe it was something that the churches and religious leaders use to control people. I don't know. That would be one potential explanation. And then Kev the Rev's got a theory on this. Yeah. That's kind of very similar to my explanation. A lot of it's just about control. And again, I think that's also why the government is not necessarily very clear on what we know about the phenomena, UAPs and things like that. I think they know a lot more than they let on. I think the rationale is that they're worried by. I think I was watching an interview on a podcast called Concrete. That it was an interview of James Fox, who's done a lot of interviews on or documentaries on the phenomena. And what he said is he had met with Robert Bigelow, and Robert Bigelow told him that they're already among us. And the reason that we don't have a disclosure, it's like, multiply Watergate by 1,000,000 times. And I think part of it is, Bigelow's rationale was, look, if this stuff came out, people would stop working, they would stop supporting the current organizational structures. But at the end of the day, somebody still has to take out the trash, right? Somebody still has to make sure that electric grid is running and things like that. But I think at this point, my confidence in world leaders is after 2020, they don't know what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing. And I think it would be best that they would just announce this stuff as soon as possible, even if they don't have all the answers, because they've lost me. I don't have any confidence. Yeah, Ryan, you're absolutely right. I mean, they already are. I think they're slow walking it right now, right, with the UAPs and things like that. There's just too much out there. A lot of it's either misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation, but some of the stuff is going to prove to be true, in my opinion. The question is, like, can I tell you what part of it is true? No, but I think the more I look into this, and I've had private conversations that I'm not going to repeat here with. I'll just leave it at that. But there's sometimes when you ask somebody about something and they just look at you and don't answer the question, that's usually affirmation that there's stuff that you just can't talk about. So, so you have to watch the full interview on Concrete, but the way that he said it, the way that James Fox said it, like they're walking among us, in terms of, there have been enough reports of like the Nordic types and things like that they could easily blend in. And I've heard other anecdotal stories of this as well. So there's a book I'm reading right now by Ingo Swann called Penetration. There's an incident. In fact, that's where the code name Axelrod originally comes from. There's this secret organization that contracts Ingo Swann to work on this problem, and he was in LA and he encountered one of them in a supermarket in LA. And the reason he knew is he just kind of had this feeling that this person was not of this world, but also one of Axelrod's operatives was also in the supermarket when they were, kind of monitoring this person. And they freaked out when they saw Ingo Swann because they thought Ingo Swann may have been working with this intelligence or something like that. So I can't speak 100% for James Fox, but that's the sense I got. But I can say 100% with the book Penetration by Ingo Swann. Like that story was related in that. So yeah. But again, if they've been here for millions of years, I don't think that's something that would be too much of a surprise. So I don't know where I read this or heard this anecdote, but there was somebody who went to a conference and kind of just put out into the ether, you know, if one of you is here, please like let me know. And it may have been in like a UFO conference or like that, but just like telepathically put out, didn't tell anybody. And somebody showed up. I forget exactly what happened, but yeah, they're out there. I mean, at least according to Ingo Swann and Bigelow, or James Fox relating to what Bigelow said. Okay. Yeah, I don't know about it's possible all of the above or one, two out of three or whatever. But the Ingo Swann example is they're physically walking around. Um, like the actual person was not inhabiting somebody's body, like they were just not from here. Um, oh, was that a Timothy Good example? Kev, do you remember what the story was of that? Was that in his book Above Top Secret? Because I can, after this live stream I can look that up and see. Yeah, Ryan, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'd certainly like to take my chances, but that's I think a lot of it depends on what your religious background is and like all sorts of different factors. But there's a recent interview with I think it's John Ramirez, was former CIA guy, and I think he got this from Lou Elizondo. They said that there was the year that they're supposedly disclosure is going to be 2027. I mean, I think it'll get pushed back no matter what, but it would be good to have somebody accelerate sort of that disclosure. So what would be, oh, cool. Oh, just to actually see one. Maybe you have though. Like I've had experiences in my life where somebody would randomly walk up to me and just start talking to me, and I'm like, what? Why are you? This is weird. But um, yeah, I don't know. Well, physically they might be pretty ugly, but in terms of like the content of their characters, you're probably 100% right, Linda. Yeah, yeah, I do too. I just don't think. I mean, the FBI and DHS were on Twitter like censoring accounts. Like, like if the government's that petty, they're not going to reveal this. I just don't believe it. I don't. So I've kind of lost a lot of trust. So but again, I can understand why they wouldn't want to. It's one of these things where the longer you keep it secret, the more damage disclosure would cause. So here's a prime example. Let's say that the Wilson memo, which suggests that we've been, to avoid FOIA requests, we've been seeding this technology into private industry. Let's say you competed with Lockheed in 1950, and then your whole company went bankrupt because they had an edge because they were seeded with some of this technology, right? Like, just the lawsuits alone of the government not fostering free competition and things like that would be staggering. And then they'd have to answer for, let's say these things use 0 point energy. Like, if the government knew we had that technology for this long and we're still on fossil fuels, right? You'd have the collapse of massive segments or sectors of the economy, right? Where people would be out of work. And then you'd also lose, people would lose faith in the government, right? In the sense that, you've lied to us all this time, and, the entire species could have gotten off of fuel and fossil fuels 50, 80 years ago, and you didn't tell us, right? All the wars in the Middle East that we fought for what, right? So you could keep this thing secret. So I think that's number one. Number two, it could be that they don't really have any, maybe they don't have any answers. Maybe the way that they would see it is, maybe an FBI agent would see it, is these, like, people come into your home, or these entities come into your home, they kidnap you, like, which is a crime, and without any without any way for the government to prevent it or stop it. What do you tell people? That, hey, there's this thing out there. What's this? So there's a lot of anecdote that thinking welcome can lead to a real life meeting. Yeah, there is, but best you can do is just keep trying it. I mean, I'll give you a weird example. So last night I went to sleep saying, I want to remember if I had any of these experiences in my past, in my dream state. Like, this is the question I have. When I wake up, I want to answer it. And there was just so much information that I didn't remember anything in my dreams. Like, it was just like, it was overwhelming. So, I just chalk it up to just having random dreams, but I'll just keep trying and see what happens, but nothing to report on that. Let's see. So Ryan, I'm intrigued by your thought. What is your thought? I want to hear. I've heard. I'll go to the next question, but I definitely want to hear what your question is going to be. Yeah. So Linda, if you watch my Monday episode with Preston and Dolly claims that if you put that out in the universe, into the ether, you will meet them. Now, granted, you might not. It might not be a physical meeting. You might see orbs, right? I think she claims that they're not here right now because there's some solar flare activity that makes it difficult to navigate the atmosphere. I don't know if that's the case, but you'll see it in the video. But they might be able to send an orb or something like that to confirm. That's what they claim. I haven't experienced it, so I can't speak from my own knowledge base, but that is a theory. But keep in mind, though, like, it's one of those things. If you go down that alley and you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. So just be very careful, because there is apparently a very strong fear reaction in people. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. The Whitley Strieber example is, um, it was horrifying initially because it was just so different. Yeah. Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I've tried that 3 times. I actually tried it at on Skinwalker Mesa, and nothing happened. Well, I shouldn't say nothing happened, but um, the wind blew a chair into the fire. That's about it when we were sleeping. But you can read into that. I mean, it was windy, so you can read into that however whatever you may. Yeah, so it'll come out. I think Monday is is when it comes out. Let's see what else. Yeah, that's in fact that's probably the highest probability event. The issue with that though is how do you prove it to yourself that it wasn't just a dream, that it was a real meeting? That's the kicker. Like, how do you prove to yourself? Because again, it's very difficult to get other people to believe you. And I think at this point, it just people are either going to believe it or they're not, and you just kind of move on and try. My goal has always been just trying to prove it to myself, and I can't. I've had ambiguous experiences, but never something that I would say I sign an affidavit and something happened, right? Because things will happen so quickly, or um, I can't really explain it that I'm not willing to say something or other really happened. But like my gut tells me I'm getting closer, but again, no idea. Um, yeah, but I think the dream thing is a good safe way to start it. What is a state a project? Oh, I see. Well, I don't want to say it's never been done, Kev. I think if you won the lottery by remote viewing, would you tell anybody? Would you want to attract that attention to yourself? I think if I did, I wouldn't. Um, I know that Daz Smith has been very successful with crypto, but and I know that they were able to remote view and win 250 grand when they ran some experiments at SRI. I think Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ did. They were betting on silver futures. But if you're successful in doing this, I don't think. I mean, I wouldn't want to attract the SEC's attention, even if we're going to say like, well, like you guys don't believe it's real, so um, anyway. All right, let's see. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right, Ryan. I think it would take some prep. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also like if you walked up to you walking in the woods and you saw a bear, right? Like it would rattle you. You know, I've seen one just kind of walk across the road with a car. It didn't scare me, but I was just like, that's really a bear. Wow. Okay. All right. I'm seeing that. So yeah, I think even if it wasn't secret, I think it would be something that would be a little bit hard to get used to. Yeah, I've actually talked to Daz Smith about doing something like this where we pick coordinates and then just try to see what people can learn about certain things because everybody has a wish list of targets that they want to see. But the problem with remote viewing is if you can't know what that target is in advance. So if someone neutral generates a list of targets and then just assigns them, people can learn things about them. But even there's an episode, Linda, on Wednesday with Angela Ford, who is also a medium. She's a channeler, and she worked on Project Stargate. And initially, they did not want her using those skills, and because they were non-scientific, whereas the remote viewing was scientific. And the more research I do on this topic is, my personal view, without any serious scientific analysis, is all of these things are just different ways of channeling that human ability. And the science is really, we're only beginning to touch the surface of quantum mechanics and things like that. And even that is a reach in terms of how to explain all this stuff. Yep. Yeah, we will have to start. Absolutely. Let's see. Well, that's a good question. So the Scientologist angle comes from, well, now we're going to a real wormhole, but it might be related somewhat to Aleister Crowley. So Aleister Crowley kind of did a lot of this stuff through whatever they're doing over in Britain. And there was someone, the founder of Caltech, I can't remember his name, but he was a big devotee to Aleister Crowley, but he was also a friend of L. Ron Hubbard. So, it might have some tie to ESP, clairvoyance, something like that, some relationship there. But L. Ron Hubbard founded Scientology. During the original SRI days, Pat Price, one of the most gifted remote viewers in the SRI program, was a Scientologist. In fact, it may have what got him killed, because he would look at, do all this work for the government, and then he would report back to his minders at, in the Church of Scientology. And then on the Mormon side, I think that is related to, Angela Ford touched on that a little bit when they were recruiting for Stargate. People who were Mormons would recruit Mormons. And, it's nothing against Mormons. It's just people attract like people. I'm sure if there was a bunch of Catholics, they'd probably have a bunch of Catholics doing it. So, and I say that as a Catholic. So I also think both the Mormon and the Scientology religion might be more open to this stuff, mainly because they're religions that were founded more recently than some of the other religions like Catholicism, Judaism, which are founded far more in the past. So maybe they're more open to it. I don't know, but anyway. Well, I don't know how to do Spotify for live streams. So I'm using StreamYard, and I don't think it has the capability to. Well, maybe I'd have to look into it, but I don't think Spotify, you can do it on Spotify. Now, I only on Spotify I only upload the full interviews, because it is kind of annoying to upload. And the other thing that, well, I'll just leave it at that. So I just try to keep the interviews there, and then everything else I just kind of leave for the YouTube channel. I'm also on Rumble too, so there's every episode that you can see on YouTube is also on Rumble. So although I don't do live streams on Rumble, it'll just appear as a historical video. Okay, let's see. Oh, I didn't know Ingo Swann was a Scientologist as well, but that would explain it. I think even maybe Hal Puthoff might have been too, but I think they left the church after a while. Yeah, I think you're right, Linda. Having spoken to Angela Ford, that's kind of the conclusion that we came to. I think all this stuff is related. Even like dowsing, even precognitive dreaming, out of body experiences, near death experiences. I think it's all related. It's just a different way of focusing. Yeah, I do. There's so through a glass darkly is on Spotify. but just for the interviews. So, and I don't have any shorts or anything like that. So right now there should be 120. There should be 120 videos on Spotify right now, but they're just the interviews. That's it. No live stream, nothing like that. I'm also on Anchor FM, so you can just listen to it as well. Let's see. Yeah, I agree with you, Note Troll and Linda. I think, but again, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm just slowly learning, just asking questions. Well, she doesn't like the beard. Um, but she can snore as well as I can. So there's and it's a glass house, so she knows not to throw rocks in that direction because I'll throw them right back. What guests would you like to see on this podcast? Maybe I'm missing some folks. I've I've learned what the process is. I've tried to do some simple examples, but I haven't been very successful at it. But I haven't, to be fair, I haven't applied myself, and I haven't taken a formal course. Um, I probably will once David Morehouse is up and running again because we've talked about it. So I plan to learn it, but there's some people out there who can you kind of claim you can do it kind of a quick and dirty method, and I think there's some people out there who could probably learn that way, but I'm not one of those people. Like I need to. It's like for me, it's like teaching myself a musical instrument. Like I tried to teach myself the guitar, and I got all hung up about whether or not I could hear the notes properly, right? And in the same case with remote viewing, like how do I know that what I'm seeing is not my imagination, is not an analytical overlay, is actually something that is correct? And I just don't have that. That's something that you need to have the discipline for and the understanding of. And I think it's probably for people like me, it's best learned in a formal class. Because again, I have David Morehouse's book and I've read most of it, and it seems pretty straightforward enough. There's 6 stages, and you slowly open your aperture of sight and this and that. But I haven't spent a lot of time trying to figure it out because But it is a goal. It is a goal, and I will get there. I kind of hope not because um well maybe but the one thing that breaks down about that analogy though that worries me is that some people just are tone deaf, which means that with a musical instrument you're going to have some people who are Beethoven and Mozart's, and then some people who can't even carry a tune. And if remote viewing's like that, that means some people just aren't going to be very good at it, or do it at all. So that worries me a little bit. But I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm being reasonable and honest with myself, it's probably a fair analogy. It's just like any skill in human endeavor. Yeah, exactly. I totally overthink. I like, is this what I'm thinking? Is this right? Is this wrong? And then I also have a tendency to flip on the other side where I tend to be really decisive. And then when I'm really decisive, I'm always wrong. At least with remote viewing sort of things. But yeah. And I'm also overly analytical, which is not good for remote viewing. Oh, the thing. No doubt, like not even close. There's no movie that's even close to that. Like science fiction horror, The Thing is the best. And John Carpenter's The Thing, to be specific. It still holds today. All right, but seriously, what guests do people want to see? Because I'll try to reach out to them. I've tried to reach out to a bunch of people, and for a channel with 916 people, Oh, that's a weird one. That's definitely a weird one. But seriously, like, what if you could see any guest on this show, who would you pick? Because I will seriously try to invite them if they're a a great guest. I'd love to have Lou Elizondo on, but I don't know what his contact information is. Otherwise, I would have sent him something. Um, yeah, that's what's scary. So I've written short stories that have like ultimately I did an entire project where I had that book Weird World War III, which is about world war between the United States and the Russians, and it was published in 2020. So yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff that kind of happens. Yeah. What about? Oh yeah, yeah. I emailed Hal Puthoff. I read it. I read one of his papers on ultra terrestrials, and then I said, this is a great paper. I'd love to have you on the show." No response. Russell Targ, I haven't reached out to, but he's also getting advanced in age. Like, he's in his 90s. There is an interview with him on New Thinking Aloud with Jeffrey Mishlove, or which it'll give you a sense of that. But yeah, I could try and see if it's possible. Well, yeah, it doesn't have to be just a remote viewing community. As an example, I've been trying to get what's his name? Now I'm blanking. He's on Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Um, I haven't heard from him. Every time I reach out to him. I don't know. I've heard so many different stories. Well, first of all, I don't. The evidence seems to suggest that it's not a creature, but it is um, has like some element of human DNA, because they've actually recovered samples in the past and ran those samples, and they concluded it was some unknown human species. So and I think there's also some dimensional or ET aspect of it. So either it's some version of humanity that can wink in and out of our existence, or it's tied to ETs. I don't know, but I don't think it's just a straight up physical. I mean, it might be a physical biological creature, but it has other attributes. Otherwise, there would be more physical evidence. So yeah, I don't know if that's, again, I haven't done a lot of research on it, but I think the best person to look for that stuff is the Missing 411 books by David Paulides. And I think he's done kind of the deepest dive in this stuff. Yeah, Linda, the same thing for me with I mean, this is going to sound weird, but like financial modeling, I just use a different side of my brain than I use for writing and editing and things like that. So, like, I can't write or edit and watch TV, but with financial modeling, I can do both simultaneously, or I can watch YouTube, or I can do something else while I'm using like the math side of my brain. So I guess it's different for different strokes for different folks. Golden V. All right, I'll look him up, or him, her. I don't know. I don't know but I'll look up Golden V and see what that's all about. Anybody else? Travis Taylor is the name I was thinking of, and the reason I've been trying to get him is his he writes science fiction as well, and his publisher is also my publisher. So uh, I have his email, so maybe I'll just try again. I'll try to reach out to him again. Her, okay, Golden V. Oh man, I look, that guy is hilarious. I mean, and the scary thing about him is he's he's been more right than he's wrong, but he comes out with some crazy stuff, and the crazy stuff proves to be the only reason I probably wouldn't do him is do have Alex Jones is because I mean YouTube would probably immediately I would probably have like a reporting campaign against my account, and they'd shut me down. So I'd love to have like dinner with that guy because he's just I mean he's kind of crazy, but he can be an interesting and passionate guy. Well, yeah, I think if well, yeah, Kanye, yeah, I think he would. I think the moment, yeah, no, he would be an interesting guy too, but until he starts, within the first what was he on these like on the Timcast, and he was on there for like 30 seconds, and then he was on like right into anti-Semitism and like just saying stuff. It's just you just it's just not too much drama, way too much drama. Again, I'd have dinner with him though. He'd be interesting to talk to at dinner because the thing that is frustrating about him is like he says some abhorrent things, but that shouldn't get your bank account canceled at J.P. Morgan. Like there's a stream of kind of totalitarianism in this country that is getting a little bit. Even at my alma mater, it just came up with like a speech code where it's offensive to say you're American. Um, okay, so you can still hear me. Looks like let's see if I can. Yeah, can you hear me still? Can you all still hear me? Okay, I'm gonna keep talking because here's what happened. I'm using a camera and the batteries just went dead. But let's see if I can. Oh no, I can fix this. So okay, okay, here we go. All right. Um, so I have a fancier camera that I'm using, and apparently, even if you plug it in, it still runs down its battery. So, um, I think this is it's good to know. I think I've had it on for 3 hours, so that's why it's doing what it's doing. Um, ugh. I hate to say it, but probably Mandarin. Um, there's a billion people that speak it. Oh, that's Golden V, Celtic Turo Sheila. Oh, here we go. I missed a whole series of this. Interesting. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Nope. Okay. All right. The Celtic Turo Sheila is not. Is a separate from medium from Golden V. Okay. All right. Well, those are two people I can follow up on. Trying to think, there's anybody else that might be. Yeah, I mean, I think there's plenty of people out there. It's just whether or not you can get them onto a smaller podcast. Like, I'd love to have John Ramirez on here. In fact, I'd also like to have David Paulides, who would also be an awesome guest. So, um, what other episodes would you? Oh, yes, it's out of control. Um, but again, like, our leaders did this to, like, I don't think they did it on purpose, but they did it to us just by bad decision making. I mean, passing $1 trillion, like flooding the economy with trillions of dollars in these big spending bills, just made it worse. And then war with Putin, um, or at least the war in Europe is certainly not helping. And then the Saudis are turning their back on us, making big deals with China. Because everything's going in the wrong direction for us, and our politicians are just screwing up. So, um, closing down pipelines. It's just stupid. I mean, even like, especially in California, right? They passed a bill mandating that you couldn't sell a car that was non-electric in California by 2030, and at the same time, they're shutting down hydroelectric dams and coal-fired power plants and nuclear power plants, and expect wind and solar to be a baseload power. Like, they're absolutely insane. Like, they were asking people not to plug in their EVs last summer because they didn't have enough capacity, and it's going to get worse. And it's something that's, like, I think the answer is just more nuclear power plants, but there's too much NIMBYism and things like that. Like, it's going to be a problem, and these morons that are leading us, both parties, they just don't know what the hell they're doing. They have no idea what they're talking about or doing, and it's super frustrating. Let's see. No, I think it's incompetence. I don't think. I don't. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, these people are like sub IQ people. They're not that smart. I think it's just incompetence, right? Like, their heart's in the right place, but they're just stupid, right? Um, the fossil fuels are not great for the environment, and we need to do something about it. But let's be smart about it. Like, nuclear power has zero emissions. It's the cleanest form of nuclear power, or the cleanest form of power. It's cleaner than solar, cleaner than wind, and it's base load. Like, it's constantly running. But we're just not. And then we have, like, politicians out here who are complaining about, you know, blaming the oil companies for gas prices. And in California, we have the highest tax rate on fuel in the country, and it's just like, well, you could do something about it, jackass. You could get rid of that, tax, but they don't. They just complain, point fingers. That's what they do. So, um, yeah, but why? Like, why would they do it on purpose? What do they have to gain by doing it on purpose? right? I don't. Well, I mean, I don't know. I Yeah, that's the other. We've well, this is just a pet peeve. Like, look, I don't. I think Russia put itself into. I think the debacle in Afghanistan set the stage and gave Putin the confidence to invade Ukraine. I think if that had not been a debacle and had been a little bit more had been executed a little bit more smoothly, I don't think he would have invaded Ukraine. But I think he just saw weakness and he just went in. And we shouldn't have stayed in Afghanistan forever, but like to set a certain date and then just yank everybody out, and it was pure incompetence. So at the end of the day, the Europeans, we've been defending them for 50 years or 60 years. So they have none of the infrastructure to defend themselves. So if Russia kind of comes in, swoops into Ukraine, we have to do something to stop it. But the issue is like we've already funded them. We've given them more money than the entire Russian defense budget. So I mean, at some point, I think the issue is that, and again, this is not reported in mainstream media, but the Ukrainians are running out of men, right? They're taking enormous casualties too, but that's not reported. Um, so that's the core that's the core problem. But still, and the other thing that just irritates me is, again, like if you come and you're asking for more money from the president of the United States, like wear a suit, like what, like anyway, that's just another thing that just irritated me. It's just like you have your hand out constantly, and you're not wearing a suit. I mean, come on. All right, sorry, just getting. Yeah, I don't even know what Agenda 2030 is. I'm not aware. I don't know anything about it. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, the Russians aren't. They're not the good guys. But the other thing that our policymakers who are completely clueless, like they have no idea what they're doing, like no idea. Like we just created the second largest military power in Europe. So what happens after this is over? Right? Are they asking themselves this question? With these extremely advanced high Mars systems and stuff like that, well, what happens after that? Right? Are they going to like just nobody's thinking through this, and it's that's why I think our leaders are just morons. Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Mr. Klaus Schwab. I'm not a fan of that guy, and I don't want to be eating bugs either. Well, that's the other thing too. Like how much of these billions that we're putting in actually makes it to the Ukrainian military? I mean, it's one of the most corrupt countries in Europe. Again, I'm not a Russian apologist. Like the Russians are deserving everything they get, but like Ukraine's not a lily white, good guy, right? 30 years ago, they were Russian. I mean, they were part of the Soviet Union too. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Oh, they 100% are 100%. Um, I'm not going to say anything more than that, but like they're getting a lot of. There's a reason. Look, I mean, the Ukrainians are definitely fighting their hearts out, but they were also trained in Western military doctrine and tactics, like very decentralized operations and things like that. Not in the slow, bulky, centralized sort of Soviet style tactics. So that's helping. But yeah, they're. I mean, I would be shocked if they weren't getting access to U.S. satellite imagery and things like that. Like we're definitely helping. Now that said, like it's cheaper for us to support them than it is to send troops in and deal with another, yet another war. But Also, to be fair too, I didn't expect the Russian military juggernaut to be as much of a paper tiger as it was. So, oh boy, I don't conspiracy can of worms. I don't even know what conspiracy can of worms I opened up, but um, yeah, they did, and I think we rightly didn't allow them to join because it was so. Um, Again, I'm not trying to be an apologist for the Russians, but I think if the Russians had like started a defensive alliance in the Western Hemisphere and started bringing in material and equipment and marched up to our doorstep in Mexico, and you know, we might do something too. So I kind of understand where the Russians are coming from some extent, but the way that their military has conducted itself against the Ukrainians is, not okay. Not okay at all. Yeah, I think there's tons of stuff on YouTube on that. I don't know when the next update will be. Yeah, that guy's got some. That guy's got some. The intelligence community doesn't like him because they keep setting him up. Like they did something with like, um, I think they got him on like. Oh, I'm not even going to say it because I'm afraid it'll trigger something in YouTube. But yeah, he's an interesting character. Let's just say. Although I did watch one thing with him, and he's more even-handed than the American media establishment. That's for sure. He's a maybe a little bit too pro-Russian, but he was less pro-Russian than the American media is pro-regime, for sure. But yeah, that maybe we'll see. Do you all know who Ryan Macbeth is? He's I'm supposed to interview him in mid-January. I mean, it's the episode's not going to show up until after that, but I'm definitely going to talk to him about all this stuff, provided nothing happens in between to change that. All right. Any other questions? Well, that certainly went better than the first time. I did an entire live stream right before this where I had no sound because StreamYard inadvertently turns things down. Even on this one, I lost video because I ran out of batteries with no warning. So I think we got through that though. Now I know how to deal with that. So I'm learning. I'm making mistakes, but I think I'm learning. Yeah. So I'm supposed on the January 14th. I'm supposed to have the interview with him. So any questions you might have? And by the way, I have a Patreon account, and one of my patrons recommended him, and I looked him up, and I'm like, oh yeah, he'd be definitely on brand. So I just reached out to him, and he agreed, and we set something up. Yeah, we definitely keep warm. Definitely keep warm. Yeah, thank you, Ryan, and thank you for watching it. I really appreciate it. So I think now is probably a natural time to end the stream. But yeah, I think the first stream, I think there was like one person on it, and thank God because I had no sound, so it kind of worked out. So thank you, everyone. It has been an absolute pleasure doing these live streams, and I'm glad that you're finding some value from it. So I definitely appreciate you all. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I'm just going to throw this down at the bottom. So if you want to, I also have a website if you want to check out any updates, and then there's the Patreon thing if you have any interest in that. And that's just you get to see an episode once a month earlier than everybody else. There's a Zoom meeting once a month where you can recommend. In fact, that's how Ryan Macbeth. came onto the stream. So, or the idea to invite him came from one of the patrons. So, and there's also a Discord channel. I think there's some other stuff too. So anyway, thank you again, and I look forward to seeing everybody soon. Good night and happy holidays.